The Sunrise Day Camps started as an optimistic idea less than 20 years ago and has grown into an unbelievably wonderful reality in which 2,500 children, cancer patients, survivors, and their siblings attended day camps last summer for no charge with no wait lists ever. Overall, they serve over 60,000 children each year through their day camps, year-round hospital programs, their Camp on Wheels, and virtual programs. No organization has ever done anything like this in the camp space. Their story is super, super inspiring, and I can't wait to share it with you all. So get ready, people. This is the Day Camp Pod.
This is the Day Camp Pod from Go Camp Pro, bringing you the best ideas, strategies, and discussions in the day camp industry. You can find our show notes at daycamppodcast.com.
Let me tell you about CampMinder, the #1 camp database in the world. It has the most robust offerings of service features found anywhere. Every feature works together to create a full, seamless system that helps your camp office run more efficiently while giving your camp family state-of-the-art communication and financial tools. Check out the details at campminder.com. AM Skyer is a leading insurance and strategic partner for many of the finest camps in America. AM Skyer partners with camps to provide public relations, legal, medical, behavioral support, and more. Experience the AM Skyer difference. Learn more at amskyer.com. The Day Camp Podcast is brought to you by CRS, Commercial Recreation Specialists, your go-to source for recreation solutions that will ensure that your camp thrives. Explore their website today at CRS4Rec. CRS is serious about fun. Welcome back to the Day Camp Pod. I'm Andy Pritikin, Director of Liberty Lake in the Philly suburbs of New Jersey.
I'm Sam Thompson from Crystal Lake Park District, Crystal Lake, Illinois.
And we are joined today by two special ladies from an unbelievably special organization called the Sunrise Association of Day Camps. We've got Deanna Slade and Aileen Hoffman. Thank you for joining us, ladies. We really appreciate you making the time.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah. So let's just jump right into it. Deanna, you were there at the beginning. Tell us the genesis of this remarkable little organization.
Oh, sure. So the Sunrise Association day camps are, we started out as a day camp, one day camp here on Long Island, and it's for children with cancer and their siblings. We're a nonprofit, so we're free of charge for all of our campers. But the story starts way before that. Our president and CEO, Arnie Preminger, who has a beautiful obsession with the Beatles, went to see Paul McCartney in a concert. And he didn't know what type of concert he was going to. And when he got there to see Paul McCartney, he realized it was a fundraiser, and it was for one of Paul Newman's hole in the wall camps. And there was, I guess, a story or some information on a camp that had to do with pediatric cancer and how one of their camps is for children with pediatric cancer. If you don't know the hole in the wall camps, there's a lot of camps and a lot of different sessions for children with disabilities, critical illnesses, so on and so forth.
Amazing organization. And every time you eat your Paul Newman salsa or salad dressing, you're contributing to them. So thank you for continuing to do that.
That is correct. It is amazing. Yep. And Arnie, during this time, he was the CEO for the JCC in Oceanside. And so he's really coming from a camping background, a community center background, and he ran day camps for many, many, many years. And so while he's sitting there, he's wondering, are there any day camps, full summer day camps for children with cancer? And he left the concert and he started doing some digging and he started doing some research, and there were not.
Yeah. So let's pause on that. So sure. most of these camps, because my son was one of these kids, they have they're 1 week things, right? Like that's generally speaking what kids get. And they get this 1 week thing with all volunteer staff, and it's in and out, and like they didn't even know what hit them, right? Mm-hmm. So that's right. What you're talking about, like something more than that, where they can go for multiple weeks or the summer or whatever. So continue.
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks. No, that's okay. That's great. And I'm glad that you said that, because even now, and we'll mention this a little bit later on probably too, but we are going into our 20th summer. And even after all of these years, the pediatric oncology camps are still 1 week. Most of them are residential. There's weekend camps. Even some of them are day camps, but for shorter amounts of time. After all of this time, we're still the only organization and camps in the world that are doing full summer day camps for children with cancer and their siblings. And so, rewinding and fast forwarding also at the same time, Arnie came back, he started doing some research, and he started pulling together focus groups and teams of people, talking to doctors, hospitals, nurses, parents. And from that, Sunrise started to be born. And as I mentioned, we're a nonprofit. So we have to raise all of the money in order for us to open these camps and open our programs. So in 2006, we opened our first day camp on Long Island. We had about 96 children enrolled and roughly 35 kids at camp every single day. And I am,
We'll pause with that, because
oh,
I find this
sorry.
unbelievably fascinating. How'd you
Okay.
get that many kids
First year.
with cancer and their siblings and stuff, like in 1 year? Like, because you were there, how did you do that? That's
Sure.
unbelievable.
Sure. And not only was I there, but I was a part of that, right? So our founding director, Michelle Vernon, who is now our senior vice president of camping and related services, and she was our founding director. She hired me and we worked really hard. Because we're not for profit, it's a very different type of recruitment than what you would see in a for-profit day camp. We're not really throwing things into camping magazines, and so our marketing looks a little different. And really, the recruitment needed to come from the hospitals. There might have been some families that we might have known personally or that we had come into contact with, but we really rely on the hospitals, the hospital staff. At this point, our reputation and our affiliations with different hospitals and the relationships that we have with the doctors and the nurses that we've built through all of these years. But in the beginning, in the infant stages of Sunrise, we were going to the hospitals within our catchment area, within our community, and we were setting up like little stations, and we were meeting the families, and we were sharing what we were doing, and we were asking families, just come, just see what we have to offer, see what we're doing. We've done all of this research. And the one thing that I didn't say was originally when this was born, he was thinking kids with cancer. And the more digging he did and the more research he did and the more focus groups he did, the more he realized and learned that the siblings needed that space also for a variety of different reasons. And so he said, great, then let's bring the siblings. What's going to be in the best interest of these families? And so we started doing recruitment in the hospitals. And
So Dee,
just
Dee, I just want to add to what you're
Yeah.
saying, which I think your audience, Andy and Sam, mostly camping people, right? When
Yeah.
you're thinking about your, as Deanna said, your catchment area and who are going to be your stakeholders, right? And in the
Mhm.
camping world, oftentimes it's the parents, right? The parents and then your campers. But what Arnie and Deanna and Michelle, because I've only been at Sunrise for 11 years, but what they needed to do was to go to these hospitals and get buy-in from them, because no one's more protective other than the parents of their children, of children with cancer, than their parents, right? And
Mhm.
then the hospital. So Arnie went to, like, for instance, Sloan Kettering, which is the mama hospital of cancer, particularly for pediatric cancer, and went to the head administrator. Her name is Nina Pinkett, and came in and said, I have this idea. And she like laughed at him. I can say that because she became,
Wow.
you met her, Andy, when you came to our conference, I believe. She gave them a list and said, well, you need to do, here's 100 things you need to do before we can even talk to you. And Arnie, and at the time, our first volunteer, Bonnie Flato, said, oh, we could do this. And they went back and said, we did everything you asked. And she was like, wow, these guys are serious. And so because of Nina and because of Sloan Kettering, because of Winthrop Hospital, all these hospitals that they were, I should say, like begging, like, let us do this. No one else is doing it. And once they saw how serious and committed Arnie was, and Deanna and Michelle and Bonnie, they paused and said, all right, maybe there's something here. And there was also this other piece, and I'll give it back to you, Dee, where Arnie was thinking, because he had a day camp experience, running day camps, going to day camps, the idea of kids going away to sleepaway camp, it's really scary for these parents, especially if their child was in treatment. The idea that they can go to camp and go home at night, sleep in their bed, and get back on the bus in the
Yeah, it's
morning.
easier to sell in many ways.
And the hospitals loved it. So as Deanna said, it's not like usual camp because we need to get a lot more different stakeholders than perhaps your audience is used to.
Right. So Deanna, guys were reaching out to the social workers basically in the hospitals. And
We were reaching out to everyone.
but what's your background? Like, you didn't really have a background in this kind of thing, right? Like, I mean, you seem like a camp
Me
person.
personally?
Yeah,
Well,
personally.
I mean, I'm a lifelong camper. I spent all of my life, at a sleepaway camp and then working
You
at
can
camps and
say
day
you can say the
camps.
names of the camps, Deanna. It's okay.
Oh, sure. So I spent the majority of my childhood at Surprise Lake Camp.
Nice.
And I worked at Merrickwood State Camp and I worked at Lakota.
Shout out to the Langbarts. Shout out to the Langbarts.
So camp was in my blood, right? I have family. My uncle was actually the director at Surprise Lake Camp years and years and years ago. And so it just the history of it. So it was in my blood, but no, I was not. My career was not in the camping world. I was
we're dealing with sick kids.
It wasn't.
It's a whole other world. Yeah.
It wasn't.
I mean, it's probably before you had kids, right?
It was. It was. But I was an art teacher. And unfortunately, I had suffered a loss. My mom had just passed away from cancer, and I was her sole caretaker. And so when I was approached to be the art director at a camp for children with cancer, I'm like, I'm in. This is my calling. I'm in all of these worlds: camp, art, teaching children cancer. It just made sense to me. And so this really started out as a seasonal position, and I completely fell in love with the mission, the organization, and certainly after our first summer, I fell in love with the families and the kids. It was really special.
The Day Camp Podcast is brought to you by CRS, Commercial Recreation Specialists, your go-to source for recreation solutions that will help ensure that your camp thrives this summer. Check out their inflatable aqua park courses for pools or lakes, the prime carts, cool little go-kart things, the emergency alert and lightning detection system. Whoa, the splash pads. Whoa, if you got the money for that, splash pads is the way to go with the heat we got. The Zoom Flume, a lot less money, and can't talk about the most awesome water flip and slides that you could possibly get. The jumpers, okay, for bouncing all around the place. Mini golf, the prefab cabins and pavilions and bathrooms, the shade structures. Lord, do we need shade structures these days? The shade structures cannot be beat. And of course, the playgrounds, including the ones with the cool musical components. Anyway, CRS, Commercial Recreation Specialists, your go-to source. Explore their website today at crs4rec.com because CRS is serious about fun.
So do you end up with families that continue year after year? They're allowed to just continue through the whole thing once they've started?
Yeah. What kind of expectations are given in regard to that? Because of course they're going to love it.
Yeah.
Right. So
They do.
I mean, if you're with a kid that's 5 years old, right? You're like, okay, so this kid's going to be here for the next 9 years. Like, is that sort of expectation?
I don't know that we have an expectation. Listen, there's nothing more wonderful. First of all, when our registrar comes to us and says, "Oh, we have a new kid," it's kind of like this. Oh man, that means one more kid is affected by pediatric cancer. But then it's also a yay. We want them to come to us because we know what we're providing. But I think that there's no real expectation because if you have a camper that's like, thank you so much. This has been a game changer for me. This has brought normalcy back to my family, back to my children, but we're ready to go to a different type of organization or camp or whatever. That's actually a victory in many ways. However, for all of us that are in the camp world, we know how important camp is. We know that it's a family, that it's a community. It's a place where we're bonding, where we're gaining all of these social skills and life skills. And the kids that come to camp, these are their camp friends. Anybody that's been to camp before knows that like nothing's stronger than your camp friend bond. And so a good portion of the time, or for the majority of our campers, they do stay with us for a very long time. And one of the beautiful things is when our campers age out and they say, we want to work there. So we have a lot of campers that have turned staff and they really get it. And give back in so many ways. And it's really beautiful to watch.
Sure. I mean, that's even great at non-cancer camps. I mean, no doubt about it. So you had experience at a camp that was serving cancer kids, right? That's what you're saying? Or were you the art teacher at the Sunrise camp the first year?
The first year I was the art director. For the
You were
first
the
6 years,
Got it.
I was
Gotcha.
the art director, and I was, teaching outside year round
Right.
and doing some
I
year
gotcha.
round programming.
Yeah.
And during this time, I, had a bunch of kids, and I was called and asked to do some curriculum writing and year round programming, which rolled into assistant camp director, which rolled into director, which rolled into
Yeah.
where I am now.
All right. So after the first summer, obviously it was successful. So then when was it decided to do another one?
I think that if memory serves correctly, I think that we were in like our fifth or sixth year or something like that when our camp started growing large, and we realized that we don't want our kids on buses for 2.5 hours in either direction. And we opened our second camp in Rockland County, Pearl River. And this way we were, because it's all within the New York area, we were recognizing that we had kids that would have been able to have a shorter bus ride to the Rockland County Pearl River camp versus the Long Island camp. However, they might have been getting their treatments at the same hospitals. So our Long Island, Pearl River, and Staten Island campers, a lot of them share hospitals. And I
Right.
just
So
want to
then,
backtrack for a second. You asked me about eligibility. And we do have an eligibility criteria where a child and their sibling or the sibling can come to camp if the child who has been diagnosed is under or undergoing active treatment within 5 years. Once they're in camp and once they are enrolled, even if they go into remission, maintenance, survivorship, or that we're not kicking them out, right? It's just not the way camps go. We're your family. You've been with us for 7 years and you're healthy and you're doing well. We're not saying, okay, we're done. And for anybody who has worked with families affected by pediatric cancer, or for a parent who has a child, even when your child is no longer in active treatment, that it doesn't go away. There's scans, there's checkups, there's always that anxiety, that fear, that concern. And so we're a stable home for these families during the summer.
Absolutely.
yeah, no, it's terrific.
But the criterion, we start at 3.5. So for some of these families, it is the first time their child is separating from them. They haven't even gone to preschool, kindergarten. So for some of these parents, it's the very first time mom and dad are sending their kids somewhere outside of the home. And we go to 16. And as Deanna said, which I think really makes us stand apart. And you'll hear this as Deanna and I talk, because we're so passionate about Sunrise, and we're very proud of what we do. What Deanna just said, that children can come within that 5-year diagnosis, they can come. They also can continue to come if a child loses their battle to cancer. We don't then say to the families, well, we're sorry, your children can't come anymore, because we see children as children. Our mission is to just give back the joys of childhood to children with cancer and their siblings. Sounds simple, and some days it feels really simple. Some days it's really, really hard. And we never want our families, and our families have told us, to feel like they're losing something else. Because when a family gets that diagnosis, their worlds turn up. It's a game changer in a negative way. We want to be that positive game changer. And our families are so grateful when they know, particularly the families that unfortunately lose their children, to know that their other children can go back to camp with their very best friend and snuggle with their best friend and swim with their best friend and see them throughout the year, because it is one of the, as we know, camp's like one of the last safe places in the world. So we want to make sure that those kids can continue to come.
especially these days. So,
I was
so
gonna say in Chicago, we have a 1 week resident, but they don't include siblings in our area. And that part of it is, I think, is so important. That's amazing that you started off with that model because you were so
yeah, it's an
progressive.
unbelievable model. It's bereavement camp. It's like sibling camp. It's all these things that many camps just do singularly, but you
Right.
guys throw all together. And to start at 3.5 years old, which I know a lot of day camps do that, but most of our 3.5 year olds are coming from very, very normal situations. I've been in pediatric oncology wards and seen these toddlers and such hooked up to the machines and the things up their nose and and in their ports and all this kind of stuff. And it is literally the saddest thing you can possibly see. And for them to go from that to go to camp is just like, it just like brings me to tears basically, because it's just so wonderful. It really is.
You know what's
You
so
know-
interesting? When people hear, sorry, Deanna, it's going to be hard for Dee and I because we're so passionate about
That's
this.
okay. I love
That's
it.
okay.
We're good. We're good.
Deanna and I are also like camp best friends, like Sunrise camp best friend. But
Ah,
what's
that's
so
nice.
interesting, what people come to visit our camps, and we use the summer as an opportunity to bring donors in and volunteers. People, and Deanna's very busy running camp, and myself and our colleagues that do touring, I would say almost 90% of the people before they come, they're so nervous. They're so nervous. They're going to see, Andy, just what you were talking about. They're going to see very, very, very sick children with poles and wheelchairs and tubes. And yeah, some of our kids do that, but most people, I love to say, well, what's the biggest takeaway you got from today? And they'll say, I thought I was going to see a whole bunch of sick children and it was going to be scary, even for our staff. When they hear about Sunrise, their parents are like, I don't know, that seems really sad. I don't know if I want my child to be having to do that for the summer. And we say, no, it's the opposite. You must send your kids here. And particularly on Long Island, I was just talking to someone and they said, oh, you work at Sunrise. In our town, every kid wants to work at Sunrise.
Oh my gosh.
That's so
What a great
cool.
endorsement. Well, it's very
Yeah.
rewarding. Almost selfishly, it's rewarding because you're seeing kids that really, really appreciate this, right? Kids that have been dealt a rough hand in life and being given this wonderful opportunity. So Aileen, how do you guys find these properties, these locations? Like what how do you guys do that? Because you're talking about going on your 14th summer. I
Right.
met this wonderfully charming lady that's opening the Fort Lauderdale one.
Yes.
She's
I
terrific.
just before
Yeah.
you answer that, Aileen, I just wanna bring something else into this. Andy, you were talking about how you see these kids in the hospitals, and what we haven't mentioned yet is that after our first year opening, we did start programs in the hospitals, and we have an in-person program. We have over 80 programs running each week. And I believe we're in 32 hospitals. Don't quote me on that number, 32, 34, something like that around the country. And it's called Sunrise on Wheels. I have had the honor and the privilege of being part of that program while I was director at the camp for a number of years. And those same children that you're talking about, that it's sad and it's hard to watch, and that's one side of it. But when these kids get to camp, that common denominator is no longer cancer. It's that they're children. It's that they're kids. And so for that child that you're going to see in the hospital a few weeks later, when you see them at camp and they're running around and they're happy, that's really what it's all about. And that's where it is very selfishly rewarding, especially for those of us who've able to see both sides of it. And I just wanted to throw that in there. I don't know if we're going to be talking about the hospital programs at any
Yeah.
other time, but
No,
I
it's
just,
a
you
great
mentioned
point.
it, and
Yeah, it's a great
and
point. So I met these ladies at their conference, right? And what was there, about 150 people there?
about
And
100. Yeah.
and probably half of them were actually camp people, and half of them were hospital and school related people, right? Right, which was very interesting that you do that. I'm friends with the Project Maury people, who kids go up to their camps, and then during the off season they go into the schools and they're working with them and making sure that they sort of keep along all the lines of all the things they've learned in the summer. You guys are doing a very similar thing too. Was that like from year one? That was a thing that you guys were doing, or when did the On Wheels thing start?
I believe it started in our second year, right? I think it was 2000, right after our first summer. Bonnie Flato, who was our senior VP for hospital and related services, she was part of Sunrise, and she was also working in the hospitals. And she's kind of looking around, going, "Why are we bringing camp into the hospitals?" And it was really like her brainchild, and she started this program, and it is one of the most amazing programs because it's really the bridge between the hospital and camp. And I think that for those children who are going to clinic or inpatient or going through their therapies or at whatever age, it's a very daunting and scary experience. And when you have these beautiful, wonderful, shiny, happy, enthusiastic people that are coming in with this giant rainbow trunk and saying, "We basically have camp on wheels for you 12 months out of the year, and we're going to take a very difficult situation and kind of sweeten it up a little bit. So maybe you're going to forget about the 2 hours that you're waiting, because in those 2 hours, we're going to do a craft or we're going to play a game." And it makes a very difficult experience actually joyful. And I mean, the people that do that program are incredible.
Yeah, I mean, they're
Yeah.
camp counselors all year.
Yeah, they are camp counselors all year. And what's so great and not so great, when the parents see our Sunrise on Wheels volunteers come in pulling the trunks, they're like, "Oh no," because the kids don't want to leave the hospital. Like, imagine that. They're like, "No, can we stay? Can we play one more hand of?" And even we just were talking to one of our colleagues at one of our partner hospitals, and she said, "We love you. We love you so much, but you make our job really hard because if we're in the clinic and we're playing with the kids, and then the kid is called in for treatment, they start to cry even more so because they don't want to go in for treatment. And they want to hang out with their camp counselor, their wheels volunteers and staff. And it's that partnership you were asking before, Andy, like, how do we decide where we're going to go next, right? So our hospital partnerships are probably one of the top 3 relationships that we have within our system. And so when we started out, and so we have 38 hospital partners, as Deanna said, and we
Holy
do
mackerel.
80, yeah, holy mackerel, here in America and in Israel. And we do about 80 programs a week year round, because we know camp is only for 38 days. Like Deanna and her team and all her staff, they work really hard for 38 days, but they're just, as I'm sure all your listeners do. But then there's all those other months where children need to be just kids. So when we started, Deanna said, we looked at Long Island, then we didn't. Our children come, by the way, I can't say this enough. Everything we do at Sunrise is free. Arnie made a pledge to our families. I always like to say to the universe that we would never charge one single dollar for anything we do, and we'll never have a waiting list, which means we accept if a child is medically cleared by their doc, the doctor says, yes, this child is well enough to go to camp, they're coming, no matter what. We will find a way. We provide free transportation and one of Deanna's camps, Long Island, I think we have 30 buses taking children from as high up as
Every day.
Harlem every
Every
day.
day.
Is this the Oceanside one we're talking about?
This is our Long Island camp, and
Right.
for Long Island, it's Brooklyn, Bronx, Queens, Manhattan, Nassau, Suffolk, and
Gotcha.
hence why we their second camp was in Pearl River, because we're like,
Right.
these kids are staying on the buses for too long, and we have the capabilities to do this. And there's a need. There's enough kids in these areas that
Oh,
we
for
can
sure.
provide these services for.
Never a waiting list
That's amazing.
and never pay a cent.
Logistically,
Just let them
I
in.
mean,
yeah.
Yes.
unbelievable.
So Andy, when you were talking about our conference, yes, there was a big camp staff, there was a big hospital staff, and a big fundraising staff. So
Oh, heck yeah.
we raise every single solitary dollar. We don't government funding is not how we keep our business running. We rely heavily, almost entirely, on the support of the community, whether it's individuals, whether it's corporations. We have dozens of fundraising events, everything from golf outings to walkathons to rock concerts, comedy shows, so on and so on. And we raise about $12 million a year.
Wow.
But I've had this conversation with Arnie where, when the year is over, we start back at zero. It's not if we raised $12,000 last year, doesn't mean we're definitely going to raise $12,000 in the next fiscal year. So every year is a new year for us. But when we're making that determination of where we're going next, Staten Island was our third New York camp. And again, geographically, we had kids who were coming from Staten Island going to Long Island, too long on the bus. And by having a Staten Island camp and a Pearl River camp, which is in Rockland County, I went to Camp Monroe. Big shout out to Camp Monroe.
Yeah.
So we're also getting New Jersey kids. So we're always thinking about the hospitals. Are there hospitals that have a large enough incidence of pediatric cancer so that we are going to have kids coming to our camps? So that's what we look at. We look at what are the hospitals in the community? How big are those hospitals? We actually will go to the website and see how many pediatric oncologists are in these hospitals. Because if there's a lot, that means that they're treating a lot of children, which means we're going to have enough children to come to our camp. And we usually start our camps with about 100 kids that are enrolled. Now, this is going to blow your audience's minds, what I'm about to say, and why what we do is incredible. So a child gets enrolled, or children get enrolled into our camp. They've been cleared by their doctor, and they don't sign up to say, I'm going to come for 2 weeks, 4 weeks, first session, second session, all that camp jargon.
Yeah.
Once a child is cleared to come, they can come for 1 day, for 5 days, for 10 days, the entire summer, or anything in between, and they don't have to tell us. So imagine, go ahead, Dee. Did I leave something?
Well, we do ask them to let us know when they're going to be there, but prior to the summer, they don't know what do their treatments look like.
No, they just got a golden ticket. Okay.
Right. I'm sorry, Aileen, go ahead.
No, but so if they wake up in the morning and say, little Jeannie is not feeling well, she's not coming to camp, or I'm sorry, Jeannie just went back into the hospital, or the best case scenario, and Make-A-Wish gets really mad at us, or the best case scenario is the child's finally well enough to go to Disney, this trip they've been dreaming about. And then we'll say, no, go on that trip. You've been dreaming about it, and we'll hold your spot. When I say Make-A-Wish, because Deanna gets us a lot, our camp director is like, little Jeannie doesn't want to go on her Disney trip because it's Color War. No, it's Color War next week, and we need to delay the Make-A-Wish trip. So the children can come, and unfortunately, and on the sadder side, some children only get to camp. We have way too many stories. One is way too many, where children come to camp just for 1 day and then lose their battle. I mean, we've had that way too many times. So as far as Deanna and her team, they have to schedule a camp. So if you have 700 children enrolled for your camp, you have to prepare for 700 children. That doesn't mean 700 children are coming every day, but you have to be prepared. So that's like for our directors. I don't know how they do it, honestly.
Again, logistically, that's an amazing feat.
Hold on. Can we pause? Deanna, how the hell do you do that?
Yes.
It's really interesting that you asked that, because I've actually been having a lot of these conversations with some of our team. And I think that at this point, because Long Island went from year one, 96 kids enrolled, and because we are not obligating our parents or our families on a financial level, our job is to, outside of the extraordinary amount of paperwork to get your child enrolled, that's really all we want, right? Otherwise, I mean, we are not obligating you to come every day. Like our job is to create a beautiful, wonderful, healthy, stress-free environment for the families and for the children. And so how do we do that? It is hard, because we are taking informed and educated guesses, but what we do is we do a lot of data analysis. We track our patterns for all of these years. What has been our percentage increase? Where have we're constantly assessing and reassessing. So believe it or not, we have got it down to a science, but it's about tracking everything. It's about making sure that the communication piece is extraordinarily important for us. So if Aileen calls me up and says, I'm enrolling my children, and I say, great, let's get all the forms of paperwork. Your family's not obligated to attend every single day, but we really would like to know if you know prior to the summer if there are any days in particular that your child is not coming. And if you're going to be absent or not come or choose to come on a day that we don't know about, please let us know so that we can be prepared for it. Because we are tracking attendance, because we are taking a look at everybody's medical forms, because if we have a child that their first day of camp is actually our last day of the season, we want to know and be prepared, because maybe that child requires certain medications throughout the day, or maybe that child has certain dietary needs, and we want to fold them into whatever program that we're doing so that we're equipped and ready to handle them, whether or not it's through our staffing or through even something as small. We're handing out special hats that day. We need to make sure that that child is going to get that special hat. And so we do a tremendous amount of communication and data analysis to be prepared for that incoming summer.
Yeah, I still can't imagine it, because these kids are special needs kids. Like you said, you alluded to the dietary aspects, right? Some kids can't be in the sun. Like, there's all different things. Some kids are immobile, right? And then, these kids need really good ratios, right? You're not putting 25 kids in a group with a couple of high school kids. Like, you have to manage that too. So is like every day a box of chocolates a little bit? Like,
I think we're going into our 20th summer. I think that we are just experts at this point in understanding what this typically looks like for us. We're usually really on the money, and as we're opening new camps, and for those camps that have been in long standing, we have the capabilities of tracking what has been done in years past, what has worked, what didn't work. We're constantly reassessing and trying to get better. But I think that it is a very, very hard job to do. But I think that we've gotten really, really, really good at it. We've gotten really used to it. And our ratio, we've got a 4-to-1 ratio. For every 4 campers, we want 1 staff member. And not only do 50% of our kids that are coming to camp have a diagnosis for a cancer diagnosis, but we all know cancer doesn't discriminate. We have children with a myriad of other issues, whether or not it's the child that's been affected by cancer or the sibling that's coming in. And so we want to know every little thing about every single child coming into camp so that we can be prepared. And that really starts with our fabulous and amazing registrars, right? They're the first line of communication with any of our parents. And so our registrars know exactly what to ask. And then it kind of trickles down. When does the director call? When do the nurses call? When do our supervisors call? So there's a lot of points of contact in order for us to be informed on how to prepare.
For over 100 years, summer camps have been an integral part of the A.M. Skyer world. A.M. Skyer is a strategic partner for summer camps across the country, building personal relationships and providing valuable resources to their clients and friends. Every day, A.M. Skyer is proud to support camps and make them safer. Skyer was founded by Abe Skyer in 1920 and is now the 3rd generation of Skyer family leadership. My friends Henry, Jeffrey, and Amy, and the experienced A.M. Skyer staff, they eat, sleep, and breathe summer camps while fostering partnerships with camps that last for decades, if not centuries. Give A.M. Skyer the opportunity to find solutions for your most challenging insurance needs. I can tell you firsthand, they truly go above and beyond. Learn more at amskyer.com. As a camp director, you're a leader of your camp and a pillar in your community. When your customers put tremendous trust in you, CampMinder's powerful management software tools deliver the day-to-day task support that helps you make every touchpoint moment memorable and every summer stellar. CampMinder has the most user-friendly platform for both your staff and your parents, and is backed by a team of crafty engineers and customer service associates who are constantly thinking of ways to optimize your camp's database, communication, and financial management. With state-of-the-art app for your camp families and an API available for third-party softwares, CampMinder is always evolving elite summer camp software. Check them out today at campminder.com.
I feel like you could do a whole session on communication, because that's so important with the way you're running it.
Yeah.
We could all take tips on doing that for any camp, because
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, first thing I want to say to all my friends reaching out there that have camps for typical kids is stop whining, okay? Because look what you can do, okay? You can do a lot if you're super intentional about it and you super care about kids that have diverse needs, right? So, but Deanna, take us a little bit through, okay? So let's say I sign my kid up. All right, I fill out this online form, right? That my social worker in the hospital or the child life lady in the hospital told me, or the camp counselor that came with the chest of of scars told me to fill out. So I fill it out, and then what happens? Like obviously, you guys have to have a lot of personal touch along the way,
Oh yeah.
especially at the beginning.
As I said, Long Island, we started with, let's say, 96 kids enrolled. Fast forward, we're going into our 20th summer. We have over 700 kids just at our Long Island camp
Which is
alone
where, by the way?
enrolled.
Which is where?
That is in Wheatley Heights, Long Island.
Uh-huh. It's
Our
at a private facility. It's at a rented thing. It's at a
So
what is
we
it?
have we have a multi-year long-standing lease on the Henry Kaufman campgrounds. It
Okay,
is a
yeah.
beautiful, beautiful campgrounds, and
Is
we
it
are.
shared with other camps?
So that's what I was
Right,
going to say.
right.
We're self-contained what within our space, but
Hmm.
there are a number of other camps and programs running on those campgrounds. But nobody interrupts our space. We
Gotcha.
are very, very protective of our kids, of our space.
Hmm.
There's not a single person that can
Yeah,
come
yeah.
into
No, I
camp
know
unless
the
they're
camps that go
medically
there.
cleared.
Yeah.
So
And she said 700 kids. That's a lot of kids. Okay, first of all. But second of all, you guys served like 2,500 kids last year, right? Total, right? So, I
yes.
mean,
Yes.
super impressive. Super
Total
impressive.
in our 13 camps.
13 camps you had last year, right?
Yep.
Which is amazing.
And those 13 camps, I mean, we've got Long Island, Pearl River, Staten Island, Baltimore, Atlanta, Philadelphia, Greater Washington. We've got Chicago. We've got Orange County, California. This summer, we're opening in Florida. And we also have a virtual camp.
And
And the 3 in Israel. Sorry, those are the ones in the States. But we have 3 of our camps that are in Israel. So and our goal, we want to get more kids, right? And not because we're really looking at the numbers, but because the more kids that need us, the more we want to do for them. We have these services to provide, and we know that it has a powerful impact for these children. And we want to give these kids as much as we possibly can.
I'm
So
so
I interrupted
excited.
you
There's
before.
one in Chicago.
actually, Sam, we're in Lake Zurich.
Okay, that's even closer to us. That's
Yeah, Lake
wonderful.
Zurich, and we partner with Andy. I don't think I answered your question before, but like, how do we decide? So we partner with very strong partners, and for us, and because Arnie, our founder and CEO, he has a long history of being in the JCC movement. He used to be an executive here, as Deanna said before. So he knows a lot of people and he's been there for over 35 years. So there was like a natural connection for us to partner with some JCCs around the country. So when we're looking for where's the highest incidence of pediatric cancer, who can we partner with? Who's going to, because it's fun, because they have to raise their dollars, who can afford, is there enough people in the community that will take lay leadership roles to be a chairperson of a golf outing or be the chairperson of the Sunrise Advisory Council in any one of those regions that Deanna just said. So there's a lot of things that we look at before we go into putting a camp there. And what's changed since the pandemic, and I could say the pandemic conversation so Deanna can finish answering your question, but so much has changed for us, just the way it has changed for our camp colleagues who are listening. So much has changed for us. And in some ways, dare I say it, the pandemic made us a stronger, more versatile organization, and also let us see, and we're proud to say this, and we said this at our conference, we own the game. That sounds kind of snarky and arrogant, but we own the game in providing a full summer day camp for children with cancer and their siblings. And the pandemic, and we'll tell you about that in a minute, really our biggest expansion has occurred since the pandemic.
Yeah. Oh, it's Liberty Lake too. All right, so tell us about the pandemic. I'm curious now. How the heck did you manage through that? I mean, obviously, you probably didn't open in 2020, but 2021 was even worse than 2020.
Yeah, so I'll let Deanna tell you what we did on the campsite, but we actually moved into we have a world headquarters here in Oceanside. And we built this gorgeous building and we moved in, and 2 weeks later, we all moved out, just like everybody else, right? 5 years ago, almost to the day,
Yeah,
right? It was
it's
the
tri-state.
13th.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we moved out and then we went back and we all were on our Zoom calls and saying, what are we going to do? How are we going to do this, especially with our population? There's no way we can bring these very vulnerable children. So we just put our heads together and somebody said, you need to start using, and you can't see this, people are listening,
the
but you
phone.
need to start using your phone and start creating video content. And Arnie was really kind of against it. That's not what he wanted. He did not want us to use technology. I mean, we love, like so many camps, to say we are a technology-free camp. So we started to create. We had somebody, one of our Wheels staff, who is a world traveler, said, I can make some videos on my phone. I've traveled the world. I can we can string it together and make these travel logs for the kids. And that seemed, honestly, we were just like throwing spaghetti against the wall, but it was really good. And so we thought about, what should we do? Maybe we should start doing some virtual programming, and I'll let Deanna talk to you about our virtual camp. But we started to create video content, and we had a donor that was really interested in us, but we just didn't serve up anything that really spoke to them. And then when the pandemic came and we said, we want to provide virtual programming, they provided us with $1 million grant for us to start our own studio we have here in Oceanside, and anyone's welcome to come see it because it is quite beautiful. We have our own studio. Just looks better than Nickelodeon. Sorry, Nickelodeon, but it's very campy and it has a set, and we have green screens and cameras and costumes, and we create all of our programming. So we also partnered with American Airlines to do a program that's called Wheels Up. So from that volunteer who said, I have some video content we can string together, we created these very professional half-hour travel logs where we'll take the children, for instance, to every Disney park in the world, and there's 12 of them. I know it because I watched this episode, and we'll take them to every Disney park. And then when that's done, we'll do a craft with them, and then we play trivia with them. We have a host. When the kids when they come on to the episode, they'll meet a crew member from American Airlines. It's like legit with American Airlines. Well, this was so popular. The hospitals really liked it. And word of mouth, as Deanna said earlier, hospitals started calling us and saying, hey, we hear about this Wheels Up. How do we get this into our hospital?
Yeah, seriously.
Well, seems simple. We're just sending them and they're putting it on their closed caption TV. So now we're very proud to tell you we're in 211 hospitals around the world, 7 countries, where we are sending multi-languages, our Wheels Up episodes into the hospitals. And what that has done is now exposed hospitals to Sunrise. And now the hospitals are calling us and saying, how do we get Sunrise into our community? So now we have to look at all those criteria I just told you about. Was there enough incidents? So that has opened up a huge, huge space for us. And the other thing we did is we got funding from the Bernie Marcus Foundation to expand our services. And our goal when we got this funding 3 years ago was we wanted to serve 1/3 of every child impacted by pediatric cancer. And last year alone, we served over 60,000 children. So with camp, with our in-hospital programs and our virtual programs. And again, this is where now we're doing really cool things where we're using the virtual glasses, right? The virtual experience.
The VR.
So we're taking children. We work with this company that it's nothing violent. We're taking them under the sea. We're taking them into the jungle while they're hooked up, getting treatments, and they're literally being taken out of having that treatment and are under the sea swimming with dolphins. And the great thing about the virtual glasses, and we're about to open this up and bring it to many of our hospitals, mom and dad can do it along with them. So they're together, and we have video we could show you where the kid's like, look, it's a bear, it's a bear. We had one little boy who was screeching, and he hardly ever spoke to anybody, screeching. The doctors and nurses went running in because they thought something was wrong, but he just was playing with bears with his virtual glasses.
Well, any of these kind of videos you have and any kind of sunrise, like documentary kind of things that you have, please share them with our producer, Matt, because we'll put them in the show notes for people to see.
Oh, yes.
Because
And
this
anybody
is-
can go see
This is
them.
super cool.
If
Mhm.
before we get to your producer, you can go on to
Mhm.
sunriseassociation.org. We have our own YouTube channel. You'll be able to see about all of our programs, all of our fundraising events. Anything you want to know about Sunrise, go to sunriseassociation.org and you'll be able to really learn a lot about Sunrise. And if you want more information, you can always reach out to myself or Deanna.
Excellent. All right. Well, we're running out of time, but I do want to talk a little bit about the fundraising thing because you touched on it and you just say throw $12 million out there from scratch every single year without any grants, public grants or anything like that. And I remember speaking to somebody at your conference, like, how the hell did you pay for all this kind of thing? And she said the walk-a-thon that you guys do in Long Island itself, I think she told me they had 3,000 people walking and they raised $1 million just for one walk. Like,
That's
holy
right.
mackerel. That's unfreaking believable. So what other kind of things do you do in order to get out there? Because there's a lot of not-for-profit day camps listening.
Yeah. So like I said, we have something for everyone. And we love to say, Deanna and I are probably two of the kookiest creative people you'll ever meet. And we always say, tell us your craziest idea and we'll turn it into a fundraiser. And we've done that in a lot of ways. So if anyone's interested in supporting Sunrise, and I guess Andy and Sam, you can get our information out to everyone. We're
Mhm.
happy to talk to you. But for our friends, we have a program called Camp to Camp. So one of our board members from a Benneroff, many of the Benneroffs.
Yep.
I don't know if Andy, if you knew that, I think you and I talked about it. So we've been working with those camps. We've used the walkathons and anyone's allowed to do this. I'm saying this really loud. Any one of our walks, and we have 8 around the country, use our walk as a time to do a camp reunion for your camps. We've done that with a lot of different
Mhm.
camps where you can come together, use the walk as the backdrop and raise money together, raise awareness and use it as a camp reunion. That's one way. We've worked with a lot of other camps. I know so many of you are supporting other charities like us, doing swim-a-thons and walk-a-thons. If you want to do something at camp, kids really like this. They could really relate to it when you say, well, just like you're swimming in the pool, so are kids with cancer, and they can do exactly what you're doing at camp. So
Mhm.
there are a lot of camps that do something during the summer. So that's one way. We have golf outings, I'm sure there's some golfers who are listening. Our golf outings are during the summer, so that might be hard for anyone who's working during the summer. So if you're interested, reach out to us. We're happy to have a call with you to brainstorm to see how we could work with your communities.
Yeah.
And I will tell you, once we get on the phone with you, it's whether myself, Deanna, or one of our colleagues will come up with something. And doesn't necessarily have to be fundraising. We can come up with a craft idea. I know I did with, oh my gosh, the name is escaping me, but kids were writing letters to each other during the summer. There is something for everyone. And I will also say, if anybody's out there who's looking for bar mitzvah projects or communion projects, talk to us. We could find something for your kids to do. And it's going to really make a difference. One of the reasons why we're so successful is because it's 3 things. It's camp, it's kids, and it's cancer. And that really is easy to it's hard to wrap your mind around it, but it's easy. And kids who go to camp I get to go to camp. How great is that I can help another kid go to camp?
No, I
Truly
just want to I want to jump in because Andy, you had asked a question before about how, especially with the amount of people that we have, how we keep and the communication that Sam, you were mentioning before. If somebody asked me about the magic ingredient, and it kind of speaks to what Aileen was just saying. Doesn't matter how large we are, right? What does matter is that if you have 30 kids or 700 kids, for every single parent you're talking to, we are genuinely caring and we are personable. We take the time. We are not there to check a box. And that is not just with our families, it is with all of our stakeholders. And I'm so proud personally to know that I can speak very, very intimately about Long Island. That is where, and I work with other camps and I oversee other camps. But what I know is so consistent across the board in all of our communities is that this is a shared mindset, right? I know that if I'm thinking about our camp in Atlanta or our camp in Philly or Baltimore, it doesn't matter. I know that every single stakeholder, every single family, every child, every staff member, every donor, every single person that we are talking with and we are working with, we are putting the same amount of care and time into what they have to say, what they have to offer, and what they need. And I think that that is unique. I think it's rare, and I think it is part of who we are. And you just can't fake it. You can't fake really, really, really genuinely caring. And I think that every single person in this organization has has that same mindset. And so, Sam, to answer your question from a few minutes ago, that's really how we do it because we care. We want to do it. We don't have to do it. We get to do it, right? We get to be here and we really want to be here and we really want to help. And there's so many different layers to it, right? It's the education that we're giving and the life skills we're giving to our staff, to our campers. It's the opportunities that we're giving to our volunteers, our donors. It's really in a beautiful package. It's truly one of the most incredible organizations I've ever known and very proud to be a part of.
It even starts in your interview process, and you've built this reputation now that brings in the good people, and you've built these relationships now it's self-propagating almost because of your base that you started with and that you stuck to it and really had the mission all the way through. That's really cool.
Yeah,
Well, I'm
thank
proud to know
you.
you guys. You guys are super impressive. Your organization is amazing. Arnie is like a saint for him to have come up with this vision and to truly come through with it. My friend Scott Rothschild had me listen to a Mr. Beast podcast. I don't know if you know who Mr. Beast is. He's a crazy YouTuber, but he's got that same kind of thing.
Oh,
Like,
yes.
don't tell me I can't do it. Like, I'll figure out how to do it kind of thing. And that's the way that you guys approach pretty much everything, which is awesome. It's really super inspirational. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I mean, I met 100 of you guys. This is the 100 kindest people I ever met in one room. Really phenomenal. And I
Thank
look
you.
forward to seeing you guys at Tri-State, lots of you. We want to thank our friends at Campminder and AM Skyer and Commercial Recreation Specialists for helping bring this podcast to you. If you like what you hear, you should subscribe to the Day Camp Pod on your favorite podcast platform. Check out our show notes from all our episodes at the Day Camp Podcast, as well as contact information for the show, for our guests Dee and Aileen, and for the Sunrise Association camps. We're going to put lots of links up there for you. And of course, for myself and Sam Thompson. Thanks for listening. Making yourself a better Day Camp Pro. We'll be back in 2 weeks with another episode of the Day Camp Pod.
The Day Camp Podcast is brought to you by Go Camp Pro and the Go Camp Pro Podcast Network. Find a podcast for camp professionals of every age and stage at gocamp.pro/podcast. Thanks for listening, friends. Hey, Camp Pros, we love that our industry is built on sharing. In order to foster that spirit, we hope that whenever you share an idea that you learned from the Camp Hacker podcast, conference, summer camp professionals group, or wherever else, that you're quick to give credit where credit is due. That way, we can all encourage more camp pros to share the tips and tricks that will make camp better.